Good morning, Pencambria students, Basic Foods. We are going to start today's virtual module by learning about some different kitchen knives. So there are 4 main kitchen knives that you guys have in your notes that we're going to learn about, and they look like this, and we typically have these in our kitchens both at home and at school. And I'm going to show you some foods that you can use them for. The first one we're going to start with is the large prep knife. So you may have a knife like this at home. It has a nice straight blade. It's going to be the biggest knife. We call it a large prep knife, a chef's knife, a utility knife. And this one is going to be used it's going to be your main vegetable chopper. So we're going to use the chef's knife for things from chopping onions, cutting vegetables like Brussels sprouts, cutting potatoes for mashed potatoes. This is going to be your most versatile knife, mincing garlic and things like that. And the reason why I like it is because it has a nice straight blade and it'll go through a lot of pieces of vegetables at the same time. You're going to see later in the course actually how to use this. Make sure that when you are chopping vegetables that you use a cutting board to go with it as well. It's just the safest choice. The other big knife that you're going to have is a serrated knife. If you take a look at this knife, it has teeth on it. So this is called a large serrated knife or a bread knife. And just like the bread knife part of its name, you can use it to slice bread, or you can use it to carve large portions of cooked meat. So if you were carving a turkey, things like that, you could use it for that. Back to the area of meat, let's go back to this large prep knife. You would use, in terms of meat, you would use the large prep knife to cut raw meat. So if you were cubing like pieces of chicken for buffalo chicken dip or steak for stir fry, something like that, the large prep knife or the chef's knife is the way to go for raw meat. Whereas for cooked meat, you want to use a serrated knife or a bread knife. It just cuts through those cooked fibers a little bit better. Let's also chat about cooked meat. Now, I do not have a nice piece of steak here, but if I did, you want to use a steak knife for cutting individual portions of cooked meat. If you notice, this has the serrated edges or the little teeth on it, as you can see. So your steak knife is what you would want to put out if you were serving steak or chicken that was cooked a small portion, individual portion for people to cut up themselves. The other small knife that you have or should have is a paring knife. So these come in a variety of shapes and sizes. As you notice, this paring knife also, just like with the chef's knife, the paring knife also has a straight edge. This is going to be used for small kitchen jobs, dealing with fruits and vegetables typically. So anything from coring a tomato, it does a really good job at getting into that core. You kind of like move it around. If you had a potato that had a bad spot like this one does right here, you can go ahead and cut that bad spot out with the paring knife. Or if you were doing a small job, like say you wanted to cut grapes in half, this is going to be a little bit easier to manipulate to cut grapes in half, or say cut the peel off of a kiwi, than say this big chef's knife would. So hopefully you got an idea of some purposes for different knives. Not every knife has the same purpose. And when picking a knife, picking the correct knife for a job not only gets the job done faster and easier, but it's also a safer choice. As with any knife, whatever, besides the steak knife, when you're chopping, make sure that you have a cutting board underneath your knife space and underneath your food. Not only does it protect your counter, it also keeps your knife sharp. And it also protects you, because whenever you try to cut on a counter space or on a plate, you're likely to slip and then potentially cut yourself. So pick the right knife for whatever job you need in your kitchen.